Welcome to Behind the Schemes, a discussion of how commerce, corruption, and counterfeit cures are destroying our planet's precious wildlife. This is Rhishja Cota-Larson with Behind the Schemes, and in this episode we're talking about the plight of Zimbabwe's pangolins. Pangolins are culturally significant in Zimbabwe, where it is traditionally accepted that if you happen to see a pangolin, you must capture it and present it to a chief. Lisa Hywood, founder of Tikki Hywood Trust in Zimbabwe, explains that while this local tradition once protected pangolins from overhunting, current demand for pangolin scales and flesh from outside the African continent is depleting their numbers. Tell us about the unique cultural significance of the pangolin in Zimbabwe.
Right. The Shona people are the largest ethnic group in Zimbabwe, and it is mainly their belief that has been passed throughout the last decades. The Shona people are very strong believers in the supernatural world. So with the pangolins myth and legend, the Shona people believe that the pangolin, if seen, must be brought to a chief or a person of high standing, in other words, a medicine man. They agree that it is a very respectful gesture. And by doing this, by bringing the pangolin to a person of high standing, they will be blessed, as too will the community be blessed. Of course, that's not happening in today's world, but this is the cultural belief behind the pangolin in Zimbabwe. It is believed that if a person finds a pangolin, the pangolin won't run away like a true wild animal, but instead it will roll into a ball and wait. The reason for this is that it doesn't want to be left alone. It wants to be taken to the spiritual leader. When it is taken to the spiritual leader, it will be given the consent and blessing of this leader. And if the leader does not bless the animal and decide what to do with the animal, i.e. to let it go or to kill it and eat it, then the whole community will suffer as a result of that. So no person other than a leader or a spiritual leader can decide what to do with a pangolin. And this is very important because up until recent days, all the Shona culture believed that this is what would happen, and it protected the pangolin. Unfortunately, that legend now has been lost, and we have got a completely different happening on the ground, which is very sad. But let me carry on with the spiritual side. If someone sees a pangolin and do not take it to the spiritual leader, then the community will be doomed and the harvest will die. What they believe is that the spiritual leader wants to be reunited with his wife, and it is believed that the pangolin has taken the form of the spiritual man's wife. The pangolin, unlike other animals, do not run away, and many Shona people believe that this is the reason why they want to be captured, is because the wife wants to meet up with the husband. When the pangolin is taken to a spiritual leader, the person who found it may not say a word until it has been handed over and paid for, typically with a small gift of money. This practice echoes a newly wedded wife arriving at her husband's village, but unlike a real wife with whom the spiritual leader would consecrate the marriage on the first night, the pangolin is regarded as a ritual wife and is cooked immediately by the spiritual leader to be shared with everybody in that spiritual realm, which is quite a horrifying story, but this is the belief, and funnily enough, it is protected. Yeah, I know. But it has protected the pangolin within Zimbabwe for many years, up until the recent trade issues. Yeah. Yeah. So that sums up what the people of Zimbabwe believe the pangolin used to represent here.
So the pangolin rolling up in the ball, he's really saying, leave me alone. And when they see him, it's like, oh, look, it's waiting for us.
Yeah. And it wants to be reunited. The pangolin always takes on the role of a female. It doesn't matter whether it is a female or a male. The pangolin takes the role of a female and needs to be reunited with a spiritual leader, and hence asks to be killed so that it can be reunited with the spiritual leader. But what is also interesting is the old belief was that no one can look for a pangolin. A pangolin, if it crosses your path, so if somebody's walking in the bush and a pangolin crosses the path and the pangolin is seen by a human, then it is the pangolin's wish to be collected and to be reunited. Because pangolin are so secretive, very few people see pangolin. That is their belief, that it's only when a pangolin makes themselves visual to the human that they in turn want to be reunited with their husband.
Oh, gosh, that's got so many complicated layers in there.
Yeah, absolutely. But it kept the pangolin safe for many, many years.
But now you said things are different. How has it changed?
I think it's safe to say that it's probably a twofold problem that we're facing. One, we've got an economic situation in Zimbabwe due to the last 15 years or so, and the poverty level is much lower than it used to be. There's unemployment, etc. So keep that on one side. And then on the other side, you now have open flight routes from Africa to Asia, and it's very easy to jump on a plane in Africa and arrive in Asia a few hours later. And this is what is developing a demand. You've now got a lot of Chinese people coming into Zimbabwe, and it is stimulating a demand for multiple species, one of which is pangolin. And the value that has been placed on the pangolin and being brought in as a captured animal is between $5,000 right up to $7,500 So you can imagine, in the poverty that a lot of people are experiencing in Zimbabwe, that is a tremendous amount of money, and they can't really say no.
Oh, no. And so how are the pangolins? Would you have any idea how are they just getting taken out on aircraft and people's flights? I know that we've heard about rhino horns being found in people's luggage. Is it easy for them to smuggle the pangolins, or are they kind of chopping them up and taking them out in pieces? Or do you have any idea how that works?
The transportation of the pangolins is primarily through the scales. So they're either grinding the scales up, or even, they skin the animal, and it's the scales that are being transported out of Zimbabwe. I think the meat is probably being consumed internally, and then obviously body parts, fetuses or any bits of body parts are probably being dried, and then they're going out through port of exits, which is where our concerns are now leading us to sort of focus on those areas and make sure that we have correct awareness posters, etc., at these airports or port of entry and exit.
Mm-hmm. And so this new threat, the traditional medicine threat, then is more serious than what you were describing before. When a pangolin shows itself, it has to be captured and presented. So this is more of a commercial threat to these animals then?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It now you've got a financial price on the pangolin's head, which I think any animal, regardless of what it is, as soon as there's a financial price on its head to this level, then that's going to obviously be in the animal's detriment. And also, nobody's really, up until recently, focused on the smaller animals that are being traded, be it for the Muti trade or for the meat trade. People haven't really been focused on the smaller animals, the rhino, etc. Yes, they're very focused, and there's a lot of awareness campaigns out there throughout the world on your animals like your pangolin and your hedgehog. In Zimbabwe, that's another animal that's also, coming under tremendous threat, is the hedgehog, for Muti purposes or medicine purposes as well.
Oh, I didn't know that about the hedgehog. Tell us more about the Muti purposes, how that affects the pangolins as well. Okay.
In Zimbabwe, Muti probably plays a very minor part. There are spiritual leaders or nyangas, as we call them. They're African witch doctors. And yes, they probably do have pieces of the pangolin, but it's not a huge thing. It's not like you can guarantee to go into a Muti stall and you will see a part of a pangolin. South Africa is quite a lot different. Their traditional belief is that one pangolin scale worn in your pocket will ward off all bad or negative energy. So your average person wants to have a pangolin scale to ward off any evil spirits.
Oh, no.
We don't have that belief here in Zimbabwe. Yeah, I know.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It goes from bad to worse, doesn't it? When you start sort of layering a little bit of onion peel off and seeing what's underneath, it's quite terrifying.
Oh, it is. But pangolins they're a specially protected species in Zimbabwe, but what does that mean? Is that helping? How does that work?
Yeah, it definitely has a huge effect. There are 9 specially protected animals in Zimbabwe, pangolin being one of them, and obviously your black and white rhino are the other animals that are involved in this group. What that means is that they have special protection. So if you are found poaching or trading in any one of the 9 species, you automatically are liable for a jail sentence and or a heavy fine. So with reference to the pangolin, it has just been passed now, and we've worked very closely with our authorities, the Ministry of Environment as well as our national parks and the Tikki Hywood Trust, to increase the poaching fines so that they can act as a deterrent. So the pangolin fine has gone from $500 to 5,000, and we feel that this is now going to be a deterrent, because if somebody is caught with a pangolin that they've poached, if they cannot pay that fine of $5,000, they're automatically jailed for a period of time until they can pay that 5,000, and they have to go to court, and it will be a trial. And that's obviously where we come in, and we present to the courts the different areas which we want them to be penalized under. So you can bring in the Cruelty Act, which is very important in Zimbabwe, and it still holds a lot of clout in Zimbabwe, because most pangolin, the way they're transported is not very humane, and obviously the time frame that poacher has that pangolin, it hasn't been watered well, and it obviously hasn't fed, because the diet requirements of a pangolin are so difficult and unusual.
And so, just going back to what you said, so it's an automatic fine of $5,000 if they've captured or if they're in possession of a pangolin. Then that's correct.
Correct.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's good. That's good news. And then the transporting of the pangolins, obviously, as you said, they can't really take care of them. So I imagine they're probably not in very good condition when you're able to rescue them. And so you've got to do some rehabilitation with them.
Correct. That's the other problem. If I can just give you a rough idea, the last pangolin court case that we were involved in, which was in December last year, what we managed to actually go to court with were the following charges. So the primary charge was Section 45 of Parks and Wildlife Act, which is the control of hunting a specially protected animal or being in the possession and sale of a specially protected animal. Okay, so that is one charge. Then the next charge was Section 59 of the Parks and Wildlife Act, removing a live animal from its natural place of origin. Then the third count was prevention of cruelty to animals. The fourth count was trapping of an animal illegally. And then the fifth count was Section 55, Part 11 of Parks and Wildlife, a penalty, which is it's a special penalty that's put in for, again, a second offense of a specially protected animal being poached. And this automatically is a fine, as well as up to 20 years imprisonment.
Wow. Now, did they end up going, so they're in jail right now?
The ones in December, no. They've actually, that case has been tried, and they were all penalized, and they're basically first-time offenders. So now if either one of those two poachers are found again, we will charge them under Section 128, the special penalty for certain offenses, and we'll go for, if I can read it out so I don't get anything wrong, notwithstanding any other provision of this act, any person who is guilty of an offence under this act involving A, the unlawful killing or hunting of a specially protected animal specified by the minister, or B, the unlawful possession or trading in ivory or any trophy of a rhinoceros or any other specially protected animal that may be specified by the minister, shall be liable to a fine not exceeding level 14 or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 20 years, or to both such fine and such imprisonment.
Well, on the one hand, I definitely hope these guys don't get caught again, but if they do, I certainly hope that they get the book thrown at them. Those are some serious penalties, for sure.
Yeah. I think though the deterrent, there are people that would disagree with my thought process, but I think, when you in a country such as we are in Zimbabwe, and you have so many economic and political factors to consider, what I'm hoping for is to develop a respect for our wildlife, particularly the wildlife that is threatened, such as the pangolin. And I believe that the only way you can do that is by enforcing what laws have already been written, because the people of Zimbabwe do respond to knowing what the law is. And our biggest fight at the moment is to try and get that information out to the people to say, hey, this is illegal. You are not allowed to do this. And if you do this, then you will come under serious, legal areas where you'll be fined and jailed, if not both. And no, it's not a very nice thing for people to think, okay, well, I've innocently taken a pangolin out of the bush. But I don't believe in this day and age that anybody innocently takes a pangolin out the bush.
No, I don't either. And speaking of taking them out of the bush and stealing them and all these other things, you have a little baby one that you rescued, correct? What's the story between that one? I've been watching the updates, and his nickname is Champ. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Champ's nickname, well, his full name is Chamanuka, which is the Zimbabwean Zimbabwe's equivalent of St. Francis of Assisi. Chamanuka was a very prominent African person who had ability to communicate with animals. So when Champ arrived 5 weeks ago, we thought that it was it suited him, the name. Not only is he a champ because he survived the ordeal of 3 days being so young, but he needed to have somebody who could protect him as he made his way through adulthood and hopefully arrives one day at adulthood. So he also was part of this pangolin poaching. He was caught up in the north of Zimbabwe on the Nyamapanda border, between Zimbabwe and Mozambique. We actually believe that he came from Mozambique and that he's a Mozambican pangolin, because the person who poached him was a Mozambican resident. So that particular poacher is currently awaiting his trial, which will be on the 22nd of March, this next month, and he is in jail until his trial comes to term because he is a foreigner. So we believe that Champ's origins are from Mozambique, and he's subsequently been with us for 5 weeks, and he's gone from 728 grams to 1.5 kgs current weight, which is it's a good progression. But as you can well imagine, having a Cape Pangolin that's so young, there are many trials and tribulations that I think we're going to face and that we have faced. So each day is a challenge, and each day we're very happy when it comes to an end and Champ's still looking healthy and doing what pangolins should do.
Yeah, definitely. Is that the same species? That would be all the same species, whether they're from Mozambique or Zimbabwe? Those are all the Cape Pangolin?
Correct. Those are all the Cape Pangolins. From Southern Africa, it's all the Cape Pangolin, yeah.
Oh, okay. So tell me more about what Tikki Hywood Trust does to protect and conserve Zimbabwe's wildlife. I mean, it sounds like you've done a lot. I mean, not just working with the authorities to get the laws enforced and actually physically rescuing the animals, but tell me more about that.
Okay. What we started in 1994, when we started, our main aim was to actually breed endangered animals and then return them back into areas of Zimbabwe, into their natural environment. So all our animals that come to us are either orphaned or they've been abused animals in different parts of Africa, be they from zoos or collectors. We've just found and been notified about these animals that are in dire straits, and we've imported them into Zimbabwe in the hope that we can breed and return them back into the wild. So our concept in the early days was to have every animal come through our center, rehabilitate that animal and return it back into the wild, where we would fit them with the tracking device and we would monitor their progress in the wild. Our belief was that it was only when the second generation was born in the wild that our project was a success. So for the first sort of 5 to 8 years, that was our prime focus. And then things in Zimbabwe gradually started changing. And one of the hardest things that we had to accept was there were fewer and fewer safe places left in Zimbabwe to release these animals. So we had to reassess the situation on the ground. And what we made the decision whereby we would not actively breed any animals that we could not guarantee that they had the very best and safe environment to go to. So we started having to use forms of contraception in quite a few of the species until we can find a place for them to be released. And we still are releasing animals, but obviously they're animals that come through the center because they've been orphaned or they've been caught in snares. So we now are rehabilitating them and then returning them to safe places. And I have to be honest, a lot of those safe places where we once were looking and able to release these animals, they're no longer. They have succumbed to the land invasions, and we certainly can't release animals into those areas. So we're having to, reassess all that kind of thing. But with what the thing that has stayed firm throughout the Tikki Hywood Trust's history is that we work with authorities and we try and create awareness as well as helping to create the enforcement that's required in getting these laws passed through government, such as increasing the fines, the poaching fines, but also doing workshops with the authorities such as our national parks, CID, Zimbabwe Police, because these are the people that are part of going out there and creating ambushes and arresting the required poachers. Now, if somebody doesn't understand the importance of an animal, when they've arrested a poacher, they're not going to say, okay, well, we're going to push as hard as we can to get a conviction here. If they don't understand the importance, then they're not going to fight for that conviction. So we spend a lot of energy trying to work with our law enforcement body in creating this awareness. And then this year, we've managed to have full endorsement from national parks in our first campaign against illegal trade in wildlife. Because that is what is threatening multiple species, not just pangolin, is this trafficking of wildlife. And obviously a lot of our animals are ending up a product of the trade in different countries. So this is something we're focusing very heavily on this year.
Yeah, the illegal wildlife trade is absolutely out of control. It's just
completely.
Yeah, it's running rampant, unfortunately. I mean, it's just really grown exponentially. Going back to what you were saying and the work that you do, how can people help support your work?
Well, the first thing I think is to learn what it is that the Tikki Hywood Trust is involved in. We've got projects around the country. We have a unit up in the Eastern Highlands where we work with national parks once again, but we have our own anti-poaching unit, and they are on the ground every day, clearing snares, working with the community, trying to spread the awareness. Just before the summer months, we start doing fire breaks, because obviously fire is another element that hampers any small mammal on the ground, such as pangolin, tortoises, and hedgehogs. So all these units that we have are very important, we believe, on the ground, and those obviously need support. We have a rescue center, which is a 24-hour 7 days a week rescue center. We'll take in any animal that has been orphaned and or damaged, again with the ultimate aim of releasing that animal back into a safe area. We are not a zoo, so we do not open to the public, and we actually don't really promote any exploitation of animals. However, in order to have a rescue center, you do need to have animals in enclosures for a period of time before they're well enough to return them back into the wild. Funding is always a difficult thing in Zimbabwe, but I know a lot of people don't want to fund different projects in Zimbabwe. So funding, we're always looking for funding, as you can well imagine. But again, I always feel that people need to be very aware of what a group is doing before they start funding a group, because it's a big thing to hand over. It doesn't matter whether it's $1, $100, or $1,000. You need to feel comfortable about that organization and understand what they're fighting for, so that you can personally get involved and believe in what the fight's all about.
Exactly.
We're not an anti-humanitarian group, but at the same token, a lot of people, I think, find that our fight for the justice in Zimbabwe for wildlife crimes, they think we might be quite hard. Because if you've done something wrong and it is a jailable offense, I'm the first one to say put him in jail. Because I believe that that is a deterrent. And the more people that realize it is a jailable offense, the less likely they are going to be at crossing that line and picking up that animal and invariably killing that animal and then trading it. As soon as you start trading an animal and realizing that there's easy money, I think we go into a zone where I don't know if we can come back from that.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. Well, thanks so much, Lisa, for spending this time with us today.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me on your program and giving me the time to explain what it is that we're doing in Zimbabwe.
Well, you're very welcome. You've been listening to The Plight of Zimbabwe's Pangolins with Lisa Hywood, founder of Tikki Hywood Trust in Zimbabwe. This is Rhishja Cota-Larson with Behind the Schemes.